So our goal for this unit is to be able to graph some lines. So we're going to do some of that today, but we're going to do it kind of in a little bit of a different way. We're going to use it with a table. So this is a method of graphing that you can use for any kind of equation. It doesn't have to be a line. It could be any kind of thing, a circle or like a little arc or all kinds of different things. You can make all kinds of different things graphing with tables. All right, so that's going to be what we're going to kind of look at today. So I'm going to start by making a little 2-column table here. All right, and we're going to make one column X and the other one Y. All right, now for now, when we go to plot these points, we're just automatically going to fill in for the X's from -2 to +2. Okay, so 5 numbers from -2 to +2. Okay, so that part, you're always going to do that. We're going to do that with all of these problems as we go through them. All right, now we need to figure out what the corresponding Y coordinate is. Okay, so that's where this rule up here comes into play to help us out. This rule is telling us that to find the Y value, you take the X value and you add 3 to it. Okay, so that's what this rule says to do. It says if you want to know what the Y number is, take the X number and add 3. So for this guy, if my X number is -2, I'm going to do -2 plus 3. Okay, so I'm going to write that down over here just as a little bit of side work, right? That I'm doing -2 plus 3. So 2 fires, 3 buckets of water, that's 1. Okay, if I have -1 as my X value, this tells me to find Y. I take that X number and I add 3 to it. So -1 plus 3. So I'm doing -1 plus 3. That's 1 fire, 3 buckets of water. That's 2. Okay, 0. 0 is always really nice because 0 is usually pretty easy, right? If this tells me to take my X value and add 3, 0 plus 3, that's really easy. I know that's 3. So I did 0 plus 3, and that's how I got that number. I always like the 0 ones because they're nice and easy. All right, if I've got an X value of 1, to find Y, I do 1 plus 3. So 1 plus 3 is 4. And if my X value is 2, I'm going to do 2 plus 3 to find Y, and that's 5. All right. Okay, great. So now we've got our little table, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat each one of these like it's a pair of coordinate points. So -2, 1 is my first point. Okay, so this is just like if I'd written it as a point, -2, 1, right, in parentheses. We're just going to plot it. So this tells me to run and then jump, right? So from here, from 0, 0, my origin, I'm going to run to -2 and jump to 1. Next point, from my origin, I run to -1, jump to 2. Next one, I run to 0, so I'm not running anywhere, and then I jump to 3. Then I'm going to run to 1 and jump to 4. And then I'm going to run to 2 and jump to 5. Okay? All right, so this is giving us an idea of what our line looks like. But when we set up our table, I just picked the numbers -2 to +2. I could have done like -2 to +10, or -10 to +10, or really any number of numbers. And I could have even picked some fractions, right? Like we could have plugged in a half. And that would have caused, like, it would have been a little bit more work because we would have to figure this part out, but we could have done that. So to represent that on our graph, the fact that we could have chosen different numbers for X, we could have picked numbers between these numbers or numbers bigger than or smaller than these numbers. So to represent that, what we do is we draw a straight line that goes through these points. So I'm going to draw a straight line that goes through these. I'm going to put an arrow at the end to show that I could keep going in either direction. Right? You can keep picking bigger and bigger and bigger or smaller and smaller and smaller numbers. Okay, and that graph represents what this line is. These points that this line goes through, even the ones over here or even way off up here, those are all the pairs of points where if you take the X coordinate and add 3 to it, you get the Y coordinate. Okay? All right, so that's what we're doing when we're graphing a line. So let's take a look at the next one. Next one's got the same idea, but it's going to be a little bit more complicated in our work. So here's my X and here's my Y. We're always just going to do -2 to +2. You can just fill that in. All right, and then this rule tells me that if I want to find Y, I have to do 2 times my X value minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to do some workout over here. So I'm doing 2 times my x value, which is -2 in this line, minus 1. All right, so 2 times -2, that's -4. And then -4 minus 1, so 4 fires, 1 more fire, that's -5. Okay, so this is just my work over here. All right, next one. My rule says to find the y value, you do 2 times the x value, -1, minus 1. So I'm going to do 2 times my x value, minus 1. So 2 times -1 is -2, minus 1, -3. Okay, rule says 2 times my x value minus the y value. So 2 times the x value, minus 1 to get the y value. And again, right, this is really nice because 2 times 0 is just 0. So it's just -1. I really like doing the zeros. I think they're pretty easy. All right, when I plug in 1, so to find my y, I'm doing 2 times 1 minus 1. So 2 times 1 minus 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay, and then this last one to find the y value, I'm going to do 2 times the x value of 2 minus 1. So that's 4 minus 1, so 3. And there's my table. All right, great. So now let's plot these points. So -2, -5. Run to -2, jump to -5. Next one, run to -1, jump to -3. Run to 0, jump to -1. Run to 1, jump to 1. And then run to 2, jump to 2. So there's where all those points are. But again, I could have picked different numbers for x. I could have picked really big numbers or really small numbers for x. Or I could have picked numbers in between these numbers. So to represent that on my graph, I'm going to draw a nice straight line. If you don't have a ruler, that's fine. You could use like your ID card. You're supposed to have your ID card with you at all times, right? So ID cards make a really good straight edge also. All right, and then there we go. All right, last one. So this one we're doing -x plus 4. So here's my table, x and y. And again, we're just automatically going to fill in from -2 to +2. All right, so what this rule tells us to find the y coordinate, I'm going to do the opposite of x plus 1. So this negative right here, you can look at it as negative, but you can also look at it as the opposite. Okay, so when I'm doing this one, this is telling me to take the opposite of your x value. Well, the opposite of -2 is +2. And then add 4 to it. So that's 6. Okay, for the next number, I'm going to take the opposite of -1. That's +1. And add 4 to it. So 5. 0, the opposite of 0, that's just 0. Right? And 0 plus 4 is 4. So once again, we see how easy the point 0 is. 0 is kind of a nice convenient one. Okay, if I want to do 1, I'm going to do the opposite of 1. The opposite of 1 is -1 plus 4. So 1 fire, 4 buckets of water, that's 3 buckets of water. Okay, and then I'm doing the opposite of 2, so that's -2 plus 4. So 2 fires, 4 buckets of water. We put our fires out, we'll have 2 buckets of water left. Excellent, there's my table. So now I'm going to plot these points. So -2, 6, run to -2, jump to 6. -1, 5, run to -1, jump to 5. 0, 4, run to 0, so don't run anywhere, but jump to 4. Run to 1, jump to 3, and then run to 2 and jump to 2. All right, and then from there, I'll use my ID card this time to show you how easy it is, right? I'm just going to line that up nice and draw my line. Make sure you put the arrows on the end to show that we could keep going in both directions. Okay, so that's what we're doing when we're graphing lines, is we're just finding pairs of numbers that make the equation true. So 2 numbers that when we plug it in here, you get something that's true, right? And then we're just graphing where all those points would be. Okay, and it's, again, the point is just kind of because it's like what we looked at in the last class. Sometimes it's easier to look at a picture of something and understand it than it is to just look at some numbers and understand it. Okay, so that's what the point of graphing a line is, and that's the introduction to how you do that.